Thank you, David, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Well, talking about the U.S. economy these days is like chasing the news and the announcements, not just on a daily, but on an hourly basis. I submitted this presentation last week, and I already feel like I have to update a few slides. Forgive me for that. So what are we going to talk about? We want to talk about the U.S. economy, and I still think, and I had the same theme just in November, to frame this in the concept of U.S. exceptionalism. How is U.S. exceptionalism going to develop under Trump? And in particular, are disruptions going to be creative or ultimately harmful? Well, let me cut a long story very short. I think U.S. exceptionalism is very, very resilient. The foundations are extremely strong. Yet at the same time, I think there are enormous risks out there, in particular in the context of the policy rollout. Now, I think we need to very quickly define what do we mean by U.S. exceptionalism. It's not just the strength of the U.S. economy, but it is the contrast between that strength of the U.S. economy and the weakness, the structural weakness of most other developed economies. And I think that contrast is not going to go away quickly, despite everything that is currently happening in U.S. politics, as well as here in Europe, for example. And I think the issue is not just policy uncertainty, policy rollouts, but it also links to broader topics like technology, AI. And we are seeing some of the impact that this uncertainty is creating in sentiment, for example. Now, when we talk about the U.S. economy, obviously everyone wants to talk about the Fed. I think the message at this point is relatively straightforward. The Fed is on hold, and it probably has very little room to move. In fact, the risk is it may eventually have to hike rather than cut interest rates. And markets like to extrapolate this out for the bond market and see the bond market being whipped around by whatever the Fed does. But I think there's a lot more structurally to the bond market, and I think that speaks for a story of higher for longer. And last but not least, what I'd like to touch on is the equity market. The equity market has been a cornerstone of U.S. exceptionalism over the last 5 years. Tremendous performance, which obviously benefited from the performance of the